welcome to the Tech Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, BJ Hamaker, the CMO of Nucleus. Tech Therapy is here to save you from busy work so you can focus on what's fulfilling and profitable. Stick around to the end of the show. We'll reveal how you can be our next guest in around 20 minutes. Let's go. We're here today with Yaakov Markel. He's the co-founder of Medical Infrastructure Consulting, a company that develops highly customizable practice management solutions for small to medium-sized private medical practices. Welcome, Yaakov. Nice to have you with us.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
So your company, I'm going to abbreviate MIC if that's okay with you.
Sure. That's what we do.
Okay, great. Does practice management solutions. So I can sort of like think of what that might be in my head, but I'm sure it'll be whoppingly inaccurate. So can you explain what that means?
Sure. In short, what we do is, well, you're in software also, so you understand that there are a lot of out-of-the-box solutions for various different industries, right? In medicine, it's easy to think of your large monolithic groups like hospitals and so on, which usually have their own custom medical solutions. For example, RadNet is the largest radiology group in the world. They have thousands of medical imaging centers. They have their own entire software department. Other smaller practices have to make do with whatever's available on the market. Oftentimes things which simply don't meet their needs. So they end up using 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different pieces of software, all of which have to figure out how to talk to each other.
And Google Sheets.
And Google Sheets and spreadsheets, and it's all just an absolute mess. And so they'll often hire a company to figure out how to write an API or a bridge which helps this piece of software talk to that one, and they spend a lot of money just getting these out-of-the-box solutions to work together. And the problem is developing custom software for themselves could cost, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And sometimes that's the move.
Sometimes that's the move, and we've done that. And we've had customers who have spent either with us or with other companies hundreds of thousands of dollars developing software, custom software. And custom software is developed for a specific client and usually is hard coded in a certain way, and it's not really adaptable to another client unless that client is exactly the same as the other one.
Right. So, otherwise, you'd have to scope that into the project and say, how adaptable am I going to make this? And then that takes its own additional time. And you don't want to charge a client to make it compatible for the other clients necessarily.
Right. They don't care about that. What they want is something that works for them. So they want it fast and cheap.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've created a fully integrated system which is dynamic and flexible. And because of that, it is both highly customizable and fast and cheap. So we're able to create a custom system for a client, whether they're a medical imaging center or an orthopedic group, whether they have 7 offices or just one, doesn't really matter to us. We have a very flexible system that is highly customizable to them, and they can get the custom, they can have a multi-million-dollar custom software for, the price of an out-of-the-box solution.
So, okay, but I talked to you about this before, and I just got lost, and it was so fascinating to me from my perspective, thinking about project management, thinking about software, thinking about, imagining myself as a practitioner. I don't do any kind of medicine. I make some strong herbal tea. But the reason that this is high quality and affordable and quick is because it's not actually quick. You've been building this for years, right?
Correct.
Like it's quick now.
It's quick now, exactly. As far as the customer is concerned, we can deploy something for them in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
That otherwise would take years to develop.
Mm-hmm. So that's cool, because whenever anybody tells me that you can have all three, I'm like, okay, but why? Why can something both be quality and affordable and fast? Because that's usually the pick two situation. Anyway.
Right.
So
Usually that would be the case, but the truth is that this has not been fast and it has not been cheap. It just seems that way.
because the price has already been paid and everybody who's been in with you has got their value out of it over time, and I guess had an advantage over their competitors for the meantime. I'm not sure if that's a focus, but efficiency cannot be overstated. Like the value of efficiency, that's basically what like the whole world economy is trying to get to. So, so we can work as much as we want and play as much as we want.
Right. So part of
Yeah.
what we do as a company is it's not simply an integrated suite of billing and scheduling and EMR and so on and so forth. It's also that we focus greatly on reducing the number of clicks that have to be made in order to get any particular task done.
Yeah.
So if we can reduce that number of clicks from 15 to 3, then we've made a big progress. However, if we can reduce the number of clicks to 0 or close to 0,
Right.
or if we can take a series of tasks that are generally related to each other and automate those so that they happen in quick succession to each other with minimal user input, then we've really reduced the amount of labor overhead required to do any given task in a small practice.
Oh, absolutely. Yesterday I was inputting a new client in my SEO software, and there's like 12 different tools that it has, but for like 7 out of those 12 tools, I have to select that the scope is the United States of America. And it's like, okay, when I onboarded this client, I could have told you when I created the over project container, that the scope is the United States of America. And I have to input their keywords a few different times. And like, that seems superfluous. Now, this software is the best in the industry, and they've gotten much better over time. So I have no doubt that they'll solve that eventually. But thank you for solving that in advance. If there's something that can just be, reducing clicks, it really does matter. Especially like if there's something I use all the time, but then I have to go find it every time. And I'm like, I haven't done this for 2 weeks. So where is it now? That sort of thing, like just having someone who knows can anticipate my problems and solve them in advance. It sounds like that's a lot of what you've done.
Right. And part of what we've done also is that our development happens in a relationship with our clients. Mm-hmm. So we may get a recommendation from a client, hey, this thing, we do things this way. And so it would be really great if you would just add a button here to do this thing, right? Yeah. And we go, oh, that's actually a great idea. Let's think about this discuss this with the developers. Let's think about how we can design this thing. And we'll come up with a way that's, usually much better than the original recommendation. We'll think about other things that feature might interact with, and then we'll develop something. Now, our other clients never they never thought of that idea, or they never brought it up to us. But one day we just send them an email and say, hey, by the way, we added this new feature for you. So for them, it feels as though they're just getting an ongoing development, brilliant development, which is suited to their needs exactly, that they didn't even think about.
Yeah.
And they didn't even have to ask for it.
That's pretty cool. So when I want to know, like, the original problem you set out to solve, because clearly it's evolved since then. I mean, you just told us you're making constant improvements. What was the kernel? What did it start from?
The kernel of the problem that we're solving is very simple. Most practices use a combination of spreadsheets and God knows how many pieces of software.
Yeah.
All of these things, it's very difficult to get them to talk to each other. It's very difficult to get them to work in conjunction with each other. People are putting, for example, patient information into 3 different systems and then having to copy that over to a spreadsheet and then manipulate it and then put it into a 4th system. And it's just very complex and it's very error prone. So what we decided to do was to create a customizable integrated system which covers all of those different pieces in under one umbrella. So once you've entered a patient name in once, That's it. If it's spelled correctly, it's going to be spelled correctly everywhere in your system. When you push that data from your scheduling system to your MRI machine, your MRI tech doesn't have to input anything manually. It's just going to be there. It's going to be automatic and it's going to be correct. You're not going to have to go back and fix anything. It's going to go directly from there into your study list. The radiologist will read it. It will go straight to your billing, reports, everything. It's all integrated. Nothing has to get sent back and forth. And actually, one of the things that we're working on right now is integrating a very full-featured email client directly into our system so that you don't even have to go from your system to Outlook, check your email, then go back to the system, download a file, send it into drop it into Outlook, send it out, and you don't have to go back and forth. You can just receive your emails directly in the system, get your notification, pop it open. Oh, it's from that referring physician. They want a copy of the report. Click on the patient, the file, send it. Done. Right? How much friction does that remove?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So,
and when you think about that, that's not something that's applicable only to, let's say, an orthopedist or a chiropractor or whatever. That's applicable across the entire business world, really.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like, your processes, your software solution is going to continue subsuming the different softwares that a medical practice will use until it does anything, not just anything that software does now, but anything software can conceivably do that'll make the practice run smoothly and make everybody's job easier.
Correct.
So my next question is, like, what kinds of practices are you working with now, and which kinds? Like, I'm just going to assume that eventually this has the capacity to evolve to help any medical practice, but what kinds are you helping now? And what, like, if there's a next category, what do you think you might move on to help next?
So in order to keep our development process simplified for the time being, we're very much focused on a very small niche. So that niche is personal injury.
Okay.
There are certain processes that happen in personal injury which are unique to that industry. For one thing, most medical software doesn't address that particular corner of medical practice. So we have a niche there that we can really address very well. And so that will keep us going for a long time. We deal with chiropractic and ortho and pain management, imaging, all of, everything personal injury related.
Yes, I was going to think, like, the only time that we've had a personal injury, like, especially where someone else was involved, like, we got rear-ended, my wife got whiplash, we went to the chiropractor. She enjoyed seeing the chiropractor for a while after the actual, the settlement or the insurance payout, I guess it was. Gave us like 12 visits or something like that. She just kind of liked his style and felt like it was helping, so we kept going for a while. So a chiropractor would be relevant. You said an orthopedist?
Correct.
I don't even know what that word means, to be perfectly honest. What is orthopedist?
I think orthopedist is it's a good question. You put me on the spot here.
I didn't need to. Anyway, I'll look it up. So it's a kind of doctor that helps people.
I think that's
somebody's
spine.
Injured. Oh, okay, great. So, and imaging solutions. You were talking about MRIs. Is
MRIs, X-ray, sure.
Yeah. Okay. Man, that's cool. Okay. So then, if somebody in one of these practices needs to send out information, they can send it out safely. All of the, like, the HIPAA requirements for medical information security, those are baked into your software, I'd assume.
Right.
That's
so we're specialized in medical. In theory, this system could be adapted because of how dynamic it is. It could be adapted to numerous other completely different sectors of the market. I've actually spoken to recently was speaking to a trainer, real estate trainer, coach
Wow.
So we may end up developing a system for their company,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, because I mean, you in that situation you're talking about, you might have someone's very sensitive financial details.
In their application, it would be actually very simple, which would be the only reason that we'd be taking it on.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because coming from, for example, medical imaging, real estate coaching is much simpler.
Oh, real estate coaching. Yeah, that would be
Right.
simpler. Okay.
So their company has hundreds of coaches which coach real estate agents and brokers on sales and market development and things like that.
Sweet. That's
Yeah.
great. It's fun to think of the way that this is practical and abstract. I mean, obviously somebody logs in, they use it, they put in their information, but everybody logs in and puts in information to things, and the fact that it's customizable and you can spin up a simpler solution for one company, you can spin up a more complex solution for another company. It's a lot to keep in your head, but it's pretty sweet.
One of the things that's beneficial about what we do also is that we can spin up very, very complex solutions for very small companies very easily. So, for example, one of the things we're actually launching this week is a system which will manage the patient interactions from the moment that they check in to the moment that they're discharged. And by managing all of that digitally, we're able to generate a medical report based on all of that information without the doctor having to spend 10 minutes dictating, going through all of his files, all of this, paying, $20,000 a month for dictation services, right?
Yeah, I had a friend who was really raking it in. He just optimized a great site for his wife who does medical dictation, and they were making $10,000 a month with like 3 clients or something like that. But this was 15 years ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they were small clients. I could really see a medical practice. Gosh, the liability on that must be crazy. So you just have to be really good.
I have one client who is one office currently, one orthopedic office.
Yeah.
That is doing $20,000 a month in dictation.
Wow. And your solution is going to integrate what they're using, or create a new solution, or integrate a different solution?
It's an entirely different solution, which is going to be fully integrated into our existing systems, which they're using.
Man.
So beginning from patient check-in and every piece of data that patient puts into the system as they're checking in, and then each exam, and then each treatment, and so on and so forth, all of that will be regurgitated by the system into a proper human readable medical report.
Yeah.
Which can't have any mistakes because it's
right.
It's exactly what the doctor put in. Right.
Yeah.
Which also means that your turnaround on a medical report, instead of being 3 to 5 days waiting for the transcription and document search and so on and so forth, instead it's instant.
That's great. So talking about like near future, you said you've got this niche. You're going to be experimenting with a simple model of a real estate trainer also, but I'm guessing you're going to be doing more medical or something like that. I actually even asked you. I've got a personal injury lawyer friend who he already has a software solution that he likes more than the one he hated before. But what are the next categories of business that you think you'll bring in?
I think for the time being, we're going to stick to the personal injury niche.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because, as I said, there's very little competition in that space in medical.
Yeah, right.
And then at some point, we want to, in the near future, we'd like to go to the other side of that niche and do, like you were saying, a piece of software based on this for the personal injury attorneys, which will also have some integration communication between the attorneys and the doctors.
Yeah.
to simplify that. So we'll probably focus very much on that niche for now, simply because of the simplification for us of our development process.
Right. Yeah.
We
And
don't want to get too
gosh,
scattered.
the social proof on that must be awesome. I mean, after you have even just 3 or 4 really happy clients, they'll talk to, hey, my brother-in-law does this in a different state and all this, sort of thing. The potential for expansion through just client satisfaction has got to be amazing. But one other thing I was thinking, like, a lot of companies don't want to share their tricks because there's some competitive advantage. And doctors do compete in a very vague sense, but like every practice could use this, like conceivably. Let's just keep it a personal injury for the moment. It's not like well, maybe you could tell me if I have a personal injury practice in Squim, Washington, and there's only one other personal injury orthopedist in my town, I'm obviously going to know that guy. Does it seem like your clients would be willing to recommend them to the competitors? It's just I'm just curious. What do you think?
So our clients may not be willing to recommend their competitors, their
Yeah.
direct competitors. However, because of the way that we make things much easier for their referring physicians or the physicians that they refer to already in their own system, those referring physicians become natural referrals for us.
Right.
And they actually we actually have an imaging center who is just dying to start marketing us to his referring physicians, because as far as he's concerned, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he wants all of them to be more successful, because then they'll send him more business and he'll open more centers, and he'll develop that relationship. So he's actually not only urging us to sell to his referrers, he would like to even pay for it. He would even pay for it. So
that's awesome.
Right.
But because you have to customize the solutions per company, I mean, you're going to start with a base of recommendations, probably ask a bunch of questions. Would this be useful to you? Would this be useful to you? Things like that. Do you use this software because this actually already does that? We can save you $400 a month, things like that. But then you do have to spend time with each client to customize it. And then it's a perfect fit. It's tailored so that it's not off the rack. They're wearing a suit that fits, feels good. And you're saying that takes a matter of weeks.
Yeah. Depending on of course, on the practice. So a brand new practice is very easy to set up because they have no pre-existing data. If we have to do a data migration, then of course there's some delay depending on the complexity of their pre-existing data.
Oh, right. Yeah, their data could be in terrible disarray. It could be on paper. It could be it could have versioning issues. All data needs to be cleaned up without all data needs.
And so sometimes that can take months.
Yeah.
Depending on how many different systems they're coming from. We have actually an existing client who has one of their offices was running on an older system, which they just have not been able to get their data back from. The company is not cooperative. Technically, they own their data, but even getting their data released to them has been just an absolute nightmare. So
when I build a new website for someone, sometimes getting the domain swapped over it's like a fight. They'll just be like, no, we resent you, or be like, sorry, that's not your decision. You know what I mean? Like, that can be super tough. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, there can be delays that are beyond your control simply because the ball is in someone else's court. That makes sense. And I guess you'd let them know. Be like, if this happens, then this is your timeline. If this doesn't happen, then this is your timeline. So that makes perfect sense.
And we'll always do some sort of data analysis, once we can get a sample of their data. Figure out whether it's possible.
So this is fantastic. I mean, I'm really impressed. You've been able to, create a space in which you're an expert, a space that didn't exactly exist before. Like you said, you can go download a software from a website that's not going to know who you are. It's not going to be custom. It's not going to be tailored. It's not going to fit perfectly, but it'll be good enough. And that's why you're going to have 7 different softwares open on your laptop all day while you're at work, all these different systems. Oh, okay. Well, that didn't port over. Obviously, I'm going to have to do it manually again. Sorry, it's going to take 25 minutes. All this different stuff. You've solved such an enormous batch of solutions, and it's partly through dogged determination and partly your team's cleverness, and that's something to be admired. What I'd like to ask you, as my last question, is what advice you'd give to aspiring entrepreneurs so they can experience this fulfillment and this conquest of a significant challenge like you have.
One of the things that made us really recognize our niche here was that we came from building custom software in the first place. So we had systems all over the place that were customized for various different offices, each one built from scratch more or less. And the headache for us of managing and maintaining all of these different custom pieces of software was, of course, enormous. So we realized that we would be better off simplifying that for ourselves by having one single unified piece of software and then simply make the software customizable internally. So we look at things a little bit differently than the average software developer, which is they would think, okay, I want to develop X piece of software. So they develop it and then they sell it to customers. And then they may get feedback from customers, but they haven't developed a custom software. They developed a non-custom, out-of-the-box software. We're so used to developing custom software that we actually are constantly receiving feedback and seeking feedback from our clients. So we're constantly in this process of refinement. Our software is not in beta or alpha or whatever. It's simply constantly being developed, constantly being changed. If we can figure out a new way of doing things, or if we have to completely overhaul let's say the billing system in order to make that function better for all of our customers, we'll just do that. So it's a totally custom software. It's not something that you are installing locally on your system and then running by yourself. It's a managed experience. Okay. So the advice that I would give to entrepreneurs in this space is that I think that that's really the future of how software is going to go. Right now, we're used to having these sort of centralized. We've centralized the functions that we use. So we'll all download an app onto our phone, and that app works the same for everything.
Right.
And we don't own our data. All of our data is owned by some central, third party.
Sometimes you get to pick your own background.
Sometimes you get to pick your own background, but you really have no control over the functionality, over your data, over any of it, really. And so you can use something for a little while, and then you say, "Oh, this app doesn't work for me. I'm going to see if there's a different app." And you spend a lot of money, and none of it really ever is suited just to you. And I think that the future is just as we went from mainframe computing to personal computing, and then from personal computing to interpersonal computing with networks and so on and so forth. And then from that to this sort of re-centralization of functionality, where, like I said, our apps are actually not running on our phone, they're running on some server somewhere. Yeah, I think that we're moving towards private servers running private custom software, especially for businesses. Yeah. In a much greater way over the next decade. I think that servers are becoming a lot more inexpensive, and software development is becoming a lot more expensive, to the point that small businesses can afford now to they can afford to go with me rather than with either something out of the box, which may be cheaper, but not so much cheaper that it justifies having to use 7 different pieces of software.
They can afford the quality differential.
Right. And then when you really think about it, having to have 7 pieces of software to do what you're trying to get done, it's actually not really cheaper. It ends up being more expensive, even on a monetary level. And it becomes much more expensive on a labor level because now you have to have 3 different people to figure out different parts of your billing, for example.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's beginning to make a lot more sense to do semi-custom. So I would recommend thinking about how you can serve the needs of a niche in a way that serves that niche individually.
Yeah. That's great. I love that. That's such excellent advice. It really is like, I mean, I want all the things I use to fit me. And the software that I use for a long time, it just naturally sunsets because they evolve it in a bad direction or they don't evolve it at all. And I, find something better. So being adaptable, letting something become even better is for one thing, it involves a kind of humility. I mean, a through line of everything you've said so far is how much you listen. And I mean, that might be the one thing that's changed my career in the last 5 years is that I've switched over to like, I'll just listen to somebody for an hour and they'll tell me everything. I mean, obviously you can't say everything in an hour, but I used to say, after 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, well, how's this going? Like, all right, I think I got it. Thanks.
All right.
It doesn't work. So if we're really going to collaborate and we're really going to be a good fit for each other, I just really love your approach. I think that's fantastic. So thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. I hope that the listeners find it helpful.
I'm sure they will. Thanks.
DJ Hamaker here. Thanks for listening to the Tech Therapy Podcast. If you're a successful business owner and would like to be a guest on the show, please visit techtherapypodcast.com. If you got something out of this interview, would you share this link on social media or a screenshot or just your comments and include the hashtag TechTherapyPodcast? If you know someone who would be a great guest, tag them on social media and let them know about the show. And remember to use our hashtag TechTherapyPodcast. I love seeing your posts and your guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new content, so please make sure you don't miss anything by hitting subscribe. Your thumbs up, your ratings, your reviews, your comments, they go a long way to promote the show in the algorithms. So please go ahead and, give us a nice comment or review the podcast. If you want to know more, please go to techtherapypodcast.com or follow the show on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. We're on Instagram, we're at Tech Therapy Podcast. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time.